So, good evening. I am Ravi Gupta. I am CEO and founder of Elets Technomedia Private Limited. We have been bringing out a magazine called Digital Learning for past 16 years, where we have been covering the ICT innovations happening in the field of education, both in terms of preschool, school, and higher education. And we have been organizing several conferences all across the country and outside India on the education innovation ecosystem. So here we have today an eminent panel with us, and we are going to talk about the challenges and opportunities in the post-COVID-19 scenario. How are we going to adjust ourselves with the new reality in the school education system? So as we start, I am going to request each of the panelists to kindly introduce themselves and their school for 2 to 3 minutes each, and then we will proceed with a round of questions for the panel. So I will start with Anirudh ji. Welcome, Anirudh ji.
Thank you, Ravi. Good evening, everybody. I am Anirudh Gupta. I am CEO of Dixon Group of Schools. We're running schools since 1946 in various parts of Punjab and Haryana. So all the schools are CBSE K-12 schools, and I'm looking forward to interesting discussion here today evening.
Thank you, Anirudh ji. May I request Rajeev Bakshi ji to please speak.
Namaskar, very good evening, and I'm the manager. We run 3 institutions, one by the name of Rajkumar Academy, the other is Rajkumar Inter College, and the third one is by the name of Wilbur School, which is in Sitarganj. Now, Rajkumar Academy and Rajkumar Inter College are here in Lucknow, and we are one of those very modest schools which are basically very socially oriented, and they have been there since 1980. And I think this, not post-COVID, but I think during this COVID period, I think not I as much, but I think my principals and the teaching staff and the students, everything, have taken up this as an opportunity to basically invent. And I think I feel that this is quite a blessing in disguise, if you ask me, where I think there's something which is known as, I think everyone knows about this technology in education, I think, from which we had been past, I don't know how many years that we have been shirking and we've been shying away with. I think that has been, fortunately, been forced upon us today. And I feel that besides the financial mess that I think Siddharth and Mr. Gupta were discussing, that is there. And I guess not only the institutions, but I think the industry, everyone, the media houses, everyone is going through that. Government is also going through this.
Rajeev, we will this is a round just for intros, and we will come again for the details, right?
Yep.
So Ashish, Gulati ji, please talk about, give a brief intro about your school and yourself.
Thank you, Doctor. I must congratulate you for putting this panel and thinking of the way ahead in this crisis. I think this is it's all the more important for us to start thinking of how we are going to phase out this lockdown in terms of the schools. I'm the vice chairman of Bluebell's group of schools in Gurgaon, and we have been in Gurgaon since 1980, and today Bluebell's has 5 schools in Gurgaon. 2 of which are CBSE K-12 schools, 2 of which again have been launched only this year. So that's where I come from. Thanks.
May I request Siddharth to speak, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Siddharth Singh, and I am the director at the Emerald Heights International School in Indore, Madhya Pradesh. And our school is 38 years old. I'm heading the school since last 10 years now, and we are a day-come boarding school. And I currently sit on the board of Round Square and AFS India.
Fantastic. So we have a diverse set of schools here, with different types of history. I think so. I think we have a representation from several different types of schools with different states and different geographies, and also I think like different legacies and history also. So, if I may start the first round of the panel, which is about the challenges. I think the COVID has got all of us unprepared. We all are like part of a COVID storm right now, and we have no idea like where is it going and where is it ending, and when it is ending. So, so how are we like dealing it as schools? So, may I request Anirudh to speak on this?
Yeah, Ravi, certainly, all of a sudden the entire focus has shifted from, traditional classrooms to online and virtual platforms. Some schools were prepared, some were not. Some schools had adequate resources, teachers were trained, and I think some of the schools they've been caught unprepared. So while it has brought the digital divide to the fore in the country, and it's going to be the survival of the fittest in terms of your technological and academic advancement in the schools. So there are a lot of challenges, especially training of teachers, bringing them all to some platforms. Different schools are using different platforms, like from Zoom to WebEx to Microsoft Teams to Google Classrooms. So the first challenge was to, bringing all your teachers, getting your video lectures prepared, making a different strategies and structures for the online delivery of lectures. So I mean, all the principals and their teams have been working round the clock for the last few days to ensure that, a child is left unattended and the learning continues and the show goes on. So there have been a lot of, other challenges like, in border areas, in rural hinterland, there have been internet issues, some parents had, they were very, very, not willing to provide the tools like, tabs and laptops to the students earlier. They were wary of the screen time also. But suddenly there's no other option, so the schools, as you said, teachers themselves have been, IT shy, internet shy, some of them, they have never come live in front of the children. They've not made videos ever. So, I mean, to take care of all the stakeholders, training the teachers, asking them to shred their inhibitions, learning all the tools, and bringing the teachers, ensuring 100% attendance of the students online, talking to the parents, having virtual PTMs, and, over and above, as I said, that everybody's on a different tangent. Every school, as per the resources, as per the availability of tools, they are using different platforms. And the entire segment, is a kind of bit of, unregulated at the moment. So the schools are trying in this scenario what best they can do to tide over this issue, this challenge. So my heart, goes out, and my big salute to all the principals, all the teachers, who have been, burning midnight oil, and they've been not leaving any stone unturned to, reaching out to every child, to providing all these online resources, making video lectures. The schools which were already prepared, which had already shifted to a flip model and which had all these tools and the equipment in place, I think, they must be much comfortable at the moment. Like, we had started training the teachers on making videos, editing videos, almost 2 years back. So we ensured that 100% of our staff is IT literate. So I think that thing, and we had tabbed with Microsoft and Google, and, we have some other service providers also. So all that effort has come handy to us, in reaching out to the children, in providing the online education to them, in providing them worksheets, assessments, engaging with them. So notwithstanding the challenges, I think we've been able to, by and large, rise to the occasion, and we have been able to reach out to most of our, like almost 20,000 students whom we are catering to.
Amazing, amazing, Anirudh. I think a lot of sudden changes in the ecosystem, and schools and the teachers especially have to really upgrade themselves overnight. Hats off to them. May I request Rajeev Bakshi if you can talk about how has been your experience with your school?
See, as I said, that I think we have been a very, what you call a very modest establishment, and especially the ones here at Lucknow. And we did have technology, but as it is that both the institutions are little out in outskirts of Lucknow, and one of them was a little very close to the rural area. So despite the fact that we had those smart classes for many years, but I think the usage of it was not as much. But what I'm really surprised and what I'm very happy about is the way that the teaching staff has kind of stood up to the time, and the way that they are using not that technology, but the technology in terms of WhatsApp and maybe Google and Zoom. They'll be conducting classes, which I have been attending, basically their classes on Zoom. And they are putting videos on what you call recorded videos on YouTube as well. So I guess we were not prepared, and I think we were still way behind because, of course, the budgetary issues are there. We have a very nominal fee, and for us to afford a full-fledged kind of a technology center is a little problem. But nevertheless, that I think we have, I think the teaching staff and the principals have stood by the test of times, and I think they're doing maybe not, I would say 8 on 10, but I think still we are somewhere around 5, and I think we need a lot of improvement which needs to go on for that. So, but what I am very happy about is that considering what has happened and the COVID situation which has come to us as a surprise, I think it's going to train us for future. I think that is what I'm looking at. And I think this is, as I said, this is a blessing in disguise, where I think we are into this process of thinking and rethinking and reinventing our ways that we have interacted with our children, and we have interacted with our parents, and vice versa. And so I think it's a very positive thing which I look forward to. And I think not only for education, but I think in terms of our complete life cycle, we'll have to renegotiate this whole process of our living. And so I think it's a tough, it's a tough call, and especially for a low budget school like us. But nevertheless, I think it's a very good opportunity where I think we can learn a lot. And I think especially with the bigger schools which are there on the board today, I think where there is a lot of scope, I think, where we need to interact, which of course we are doing out here in Lucknow, that we do what you call interact with schools which have a much larger what you call infrastructure, and financially much better off. So it's a good learning experience, and I think we are going to sail through it quite smoothly, despite the odds that we have.
Great. I think great optimism, and great to see that your school is coping up so well, and also I think the parents and the children have adopted. May I request Ashish Gulati ji, who is the Vice Chairman of Blue Bells Group, Gurgaon. Please give your experience, how you have dealt with the situation. Ashish, we can't hear you.
Hello. Yeah, am
yes,
I audible now?
yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
The scenario is quite similar to what has been explained by Anirudh and by Rajeev. We are trying all that is within our means to reach out to our students through video conferencing platforms, through WhatsApp, through mails, of course, and of course through phone calls. Fortunately for us, geographically, we are in a location where technology, in terms of the availability of internet and other technologies, is not so much of a challenge. However, what is remarkable and has rightly been pointed out and appreciated by Rajeev and by Anirudh is, and it's a very, it really deeply touches me to see the teachers and the leadership come together. And this initiative has happened almost overnight. That's one. The other compliment that I want to go out to the education fraternity who has taken to the online system on almost overnight is the fact that they've done it sitting at home. It's not, they had very little opportunity to really come to the school and use the school infrastructure. So that's again very heartening. The other remarkable observation that I have is the discipline and the commitment that the students have shown, and the support that parents have extended. So these are the things that keep us going. They have motivated us to try and put in place as much as we can. But again, the other insight it gives me is about the collaboration that the teachers and the students and the parents have exhibited in this hour. Again, we need to acknowledge the fact that there was no opportunity for anybody to come to the school and use the school infrastructure, the school IT infrastructure. People have put their own resources to use. They're using all possible resources, smartphones, laptops, whatever. Secondly, it happened overnight. We all know that. And they are connected virtually without much supervision. So that also gives us a sense of how communities can come together in times of crisis and actually structure them very differently by networking amongst themselves. Yeah.
Excellent point, Ashish. I think what you mentioned about key, it's the first time an IT implementation in a school has happened without using IT infrastructure at all.
Some more, yeah.
Right, Ashish?
Yes. That's
So, and schools have been like spending tons of money on developing IT infrastructure, which was hardly being used earlier. Like teachers used to avoid it. As possible.
Yeah, again, that also allowed me to also acknowledge the fact that teachers have within almost overnight again retrained themselves.
Yes.
To and sitting at home with
yes.
Some of them have just watched YouTube videos and retrained themselves on using virtual platforms. I think we need to give a standing ovation to the entire nationwide education fraternity, including the government, including the government education sector, because there's lots of initiative that the government schools or the government government-sponsored education has also taken in this regard. Again, sitting at home.
Yes, great Ashish, great inputs. I have with me now Siddharth Singh, who is director of Emerald Heights School in Indore, one of the very old schools, and a lot of legacy, a lot of history with you. Siddharth, how has your ecosystem dealt with this situation?
I think I tend to agree with all the panelists on, just applauding all our teachers and all the educators out there on training themselves and executing the online program so quickly because very frankly, the lockdown, for at least for us, came as a surprise. We were expecting the lockdown to be till 31st March, but because the sessions usually change during this time, so we were kind of in mid-session. So things were difficult for us to execute, but I'm very happy and I'm proud of my teachers, and as you are, of all the teachers in your own schools, in adapting themselves. And we have to recognize that there is a technological gap in our between the students, the parents, and the teachers. And I think that as a community, everyone has come together in education, and our teachers and parents and children are on the forefront in our war for education. And I think how the community has come together and everyone is managing on their own, uh, basically to make sure that the children are educated online. I think we have amazing resources online. There is some amazing work being done online. I think we are going to talk about this in our next segment, I suppose. But there are challenges. I won't say that there are no challenges in this situation. There are many challenges. And I think this time has made us realize that how important physical schools are. Because initially there was a lot of talk about is our schools necessary? Why do we need to have physical schools? But today, after doing this online, I do realize that the difference between home learning and homeschooling. So what is happening right now is home learning because it is executed by our teachers and supported by the parents, and homeschooling is executed and supported by the parents. So I think that education is being realized right now, and I think schools in the future and today are very, very important in handling the education.
Excellent. So I think we have discussed about how did the teacher community, the parents and the children have coped up, and we will go for the other questions just now. And before I do that, I have a small uh, one para to speak about one of the organizations which is coming as a sponsor in this panel. So please hold on. It's a small para will speak. This organization is called Speech Labs. It is a personalized practice-based online learning platform for CBSE and ICSE boards. And Speech Labs is launching national students internship programs for students in the age group of 12 years to 18 years. The objective is to give a professional learning experience on the real life projects based on the marketing strategy, project design, and market research. And these are mentoring and training sessions and participation certificate will be provided. And regional winners get prizes and scholarship worth rupees 1 crore by this organization. So this is the name of the organization, Speed Labs. You can see their program logo here on the screen. So with this small commission, we will move to the next round of the questions with the panel. So we have discussed about the so here's the another logo of the same internship program. Yeah. So I hope all the panelists and the audience have seen it. So with this we will move to the next round of the panel, where you all are running the schools. You are all looking at the schools in a holistic way, not only teaching learning, but schools are also institutions. You are employing so many people. You are running a big establishment with big infrastructure, and you have expenses. So what are the financial challenges which this situation has provided to all of you, and how are you handling it? So I will speak to Anirudh ji.
Yeah, Ravi, I mean, this is an unprecedented situation, which no one had anticipated earlier. So while there are a lot of challenges, especially we are running a lot of schools in the border area. One of our schools, Dasan Brown Board School, is as close as just 4 kilometers from the Pakistan border. So first of all, we are concerned about the challenges, in terms of internet bandwidth, in terms of, like reaching out to every child and, setting the ecosystem in place so that the learning never stops. So our first priority, the first effort is to, meet these challenges in terms of providing the academic resources to every child. Fine. Secondly, what you asked, regarding the financial strategy. Yes, indeed, like I was just talking to Siddharth a little while ago, if we see it, if you look at our structure, none of our expenses, has really come down. The only thing, in terms of transport, I mean, it's just a diesel, or in terms of running the schools, like the electricity consumption has come down for last few weeks. But still, I mean, whatever as per the sanctioned work load, as per the sanctioned power load, the schools have to, pay lakhs of, money in terms of electricity bills also. And not only that, we are committed to our staff members. We have to provide them salaries in time, especially to the sub-staff, to the senior management. And the government, is becoming more and more stringent. They have asked not to even ask for fee. Even the parents who are in a position to pay, I mean, they all, nobody's paying, and, it's not expected also, because the health is paramount, like the focus is on saving lives. So none of the school is even asking for fee, but how to meet the expenditure, I mean, is a big challenge. So we have to go back and, re-strategize and see, how to meet, like the situation. So we are trying to restructure ourselves, but our first priority at the moment is to reach out to every child, every staff member. I have spoken to almost 500 of my teachers in the last 2 days, trying to make them comfortable, trying to motivate them, asking them to, join some online courses, asking them to read a lot of books, talking to the parents. So right now, for the last couple of weeks, we have been working round the clock to, look into the academic aspect and look into the well-being of our people, well-being of the students and the staff. Now, I mean, we have to talk to our finance team. We have to talk to our, other colleagues, that how do we cope up with the situation and with the, the financial exigencies, and the financial issues which we have, suddenly landed into. So we trying to, look into all the financial aspects, but it's very, very tough. I mean, it's not going to be easy, especially keeping in mind the fact that there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, and there's no clarity, when the schools are going to open. Some of the parents, who are seeking admissions in the school, they have been left in lurch. Even the class 10th and class 12 students, they are also, kind of hanging in a bench, that, because they have not completed their exams. But one thing I must say, that, I must appreciate the role of, organizations like NCRT, CBSE, and Atal Innovation Mission, and a lot of other service providers, those who have, started approaching the school. They've been providing free resources. Many of the organizations which were earlier charging have made their content absolutely free of cost. So there's a lot of silver lining also amidst these dark clouds. And we are trying, to understand the situation, trying to, work on the things, re-strategize our working, like people are not coming to the office, so how to connect them to their homes, and over and above, we are incurring lot of expenditure on providing, whole masks, sanitizers to our security staff, the personal protection kits, and, as a responsible organization which is into the field of education for the last 7 decades, we are also, we made an effort to provide free food to almost, more than 300 families till now, from our organization side. So a lot of things are happening. Suddenly, we realize that we become more busy than what we were before the COVID-19 times. So we're trying to, as a responsible organization, as a conscious organization, keeping all the, parameters in mind, keeping all the factors, the comfort of the teachers, the issue of providing resources to the students, meeting the, finances. So a lot of challenges suddenly, but I think, it's going to be survival of the fittest. And as we say, adversity reveals genius. So we are sure that we'll come up much more stronger than ever before. So we're looking ahead, and let's see, how the things unfold in times to come.
Excellent inputs, Anirudh. You have mentioned both what are the hardships and how are you dealing with them, and what is the silver lining in this whole situation. So may I come to Mr. Rajeev Bakshi, who is the chairperson of Kumar Academy. Rajeev ji, please.
Yeah, I think I agree totally with Anirudh, and I share the similar views. And I think, as I said to begin with, that we are a very modest organizations, and our fee structures are very low, and parents are from a very modest background. So I think for them, the hardship in terms of making fee payments is even more difficult than it would be from maybe affluent schools or maybe from middle class schools, basically. And what the biggest crisis that we suffer are basically in terms of, one is the realization of the fees, because the people are also hit, the parents are also hit by this lockdown. So it's not only that the schools are hit by the lockdown, but now considering the fact that there are families and here is this establishment and which has to basically pay for their salaries and pay for their interest, loan interest every month, and electricity bill, as Anirudh said, and Siddharth said, and Ashish said. So I think it's for us, it's more of a multiplication of issues. And these multiplication of issues maybe within a family could possibly be maybe could be accounted for maybe in a 2 months time. But I think for us to kind of come back onto a level playing field, I think would take much, much longer, because there is no help which is coming from the government besides the deferment of the fee. And as of now, there was all these rumors and these SMSs coming over, and there were these Facebook write-ups by maybe some fake write-ups which were all over, that the 3 months during the time lockdown, the fees is going to be waived and all that. And I was just wondering that for a school as small as ours with such low budgets, in case if it happens, we'll have to practically come to a point of shutting them down, or do not pay the teachers the salaries for those 3 months, if that is what has to happen. So I guess there are challenges, but unfortunately that because of certain development activities, we have not been able to pay the last month's fee and a salary, and even for this month, I think we are totally in a situation, because everything was being worked out in terms of the budgets coming in from the start of the April. That's when the admissions start, and you start to get new revenues, and there's a much better financial situation, and which has suddenly come as a screeching halt. So I think for institutions like us, it's a tough call financially, yes. Not academically as much, because I think we are coping it up with the teachers and the principals are coping it up very well. But financially, yes. And I think the government will have to chip in somewhere, because what is very disturbing is the interest amount which is basically accruing. And that interest amount, I'm not saying that it should not be charged, but I think if there could be some kind of a rate of reduction, which I think needs to be announced, where I think these installments become much lesser than what they would be in the current state of affairs. So I think then there needs to be some kind of a help which needs to come from the government, because for small schools that could be a big problem, because we can't afford it financially. And even in case if we manage it, it will take almost, I think I was working with the accounts department, it will take almost about a year for us to get back on feet, or maybe more. And the most disturbing part of it, and which I feel very sorry of the fact, is that in case of the salaries are being withheld, because I have got my installments to pay, institution has got installments to pay, and so do the teachers have got installments to pay. And so where do they pay if they are not getting their salaries on time? And if this thing continues, I think there would be those delays in salaries and delays in payments. And suddenly, once the schools, this lockdown period is over in the end of May, you have a huge amount of interest payments to be made suddenly. Well, the resources, the inputs are much lower than what the basically output that would be expected from us. So that is where I think I see as a problem. And But I think let's see how the time turns out to be, and how things change, because I expect that while I think majority of the Western countries, if you see that they have announced a lot of these what you call assistance in financial assistance and assistance in the rate of interest and other things. So I think that is what I think I would be looking at, and I think that is what is going to basically help us speed up that recovery process. But then if you take it in a very holistic manner, it's not only the institutions. I think industries are facing the same thing. Construction industry, manufacturing industry, whether you name it. So I think this whole country, or maybe the whole world, is basically going through the same phase of situation. So, but it's a trying time, and I guess all of us, we are there at the panel. I think we need to get together and maybe have, I think it's a very good platform where we can sit down and discuss our issues and how we can sort them out. And I think we need to be more futuristic and more positive, and accept the way things come. And I think that is, is the punchline, I feel.
Perfect. I think Rajeev, you are mentioning about the challenges of the modest schools, and where the parents are not highly affluent, and these schools which are providing the education to not so affluent population have a very critical role for development of school education ecosystem in the country, and it should be considered as a social good and a social need, and how to help these schools is a very important point which the government should address.
Yeah, and I forgot to tell you, Ravi, that we have about 400 students. We have there's a part of the establishments where we have almost about 400 students where we provide free education. And besides the free education, there is a school that we have adopted which has about 40-45 students, where it's an ancestral village of ours where we provide free of cost education. And if you come to the school pays you money to come to the school. So we are doing a little reverse process, or maybe a little something different, to attract more children to come. So that is an additional social responsibility that we have taken. And now to fulfill that part of it as well, where you have got to pay up for children to come to the school, we have not been able to pay that money for this month, unfortunately. So these are things, I think, where I don't know how the government would basically decide how they would support. And not to say that I'm kind of really desperately looking for a support or anything, but it's just out of discussion that we do need some help. And I think the government needs to, I think, protect not only us, but I think the industry, and you name it, everyone as a whole.
Yes. Valid points, Rajeev. May I request Ashish Gulati ji to talk about the financial challenges and the other challenges of the school?
Yes. So most of what constitutes financial challenges has been enumerated by Rajeev and Anirudh. And a bit that I would want to add to this is that, of course, our schools have higher fixed expenditure as opposed to variable expenditure, and that is where the equation tilts against us in times of a cash flow crunch. But the point that I would want to make here is that, and I would choose to call it unfortunate. Unfortunately, the financial transactional relationship between parents and private schools is a sensitive issue. And whether we like it or not, there is a trust deficit which exists.
Very true.
Now, I think is the time for us to possibly trust each other. That's one. because of the social enterprise nature of the school education, uh, we don't call them profits technically also, but we call them reserves. So maybe you know what I would uh, hope to see is that this little reserve, and there is a cap on the reserves also. There's a cap on the kind of reserves that a school can keep. Now, this is a time where those reserves come in to the rescue of the schools. So it will be, I mean, I would wish that the parents and the other regulators now begin to appreciate the significance of the reserves. Whatever little reserves that the schools can keep are allowed to keep as a statute. As regards easing out of these challenges, I think it's a little too early. I won't want to jump the gun, and I trust the parent body. I also would like to put my trust in the goodwill that the school has. And it's not that the parents don't want to pay. It's a moratorium. It's a cash flow. It's a cash flow issue, and it's pinching us a little more because it's the beginning of the financial year. We need to pay off the previous year's creditors. We need to put in investment into a lot of expenditure in schools is loaded towards the beginning of the financial year because it is so infrastructure heavy. So a lot of maintenance contracts and new appointments are happening where a lot of expenditure goes. But I would still not want to jump the gun, and I trust that once the situation begins to ease out, the cash flows will come. And meanwhile, like any other business which faces delays of payments, we'll have to strategically think about it, And for once, on a lighter note, as a sector, we are probably one of the few sectors which gets its cash flows in advance. So let's probably learn to live with a little delayed payment also.
Yeah.
all sectors face that.
Yes.
Lots of sectors face it. There are still.
Good
And if
point, Ashish, I think. Good point you mentioned. Yeah.
Thanks. I think Siddharth was wanting to add value to this discussion.
I think all the valid points have been covered by the other panelists. I think what people don't realize is that, as Ashish ji said, that we have cap on our reserves by the government. So what happens is that the general to private schools is that they have a lot of money and they have they are growing, no control over them. But that's absolutely untrue, and especially for the schools who are investing the money back in the schools. This time is very critical because, as Ashish said, that this is the year's end, and we are all starting a new session. April being the important month where we receive our cash flow, and a lot of our expenses are targeted in this month. With the EMIs of our loans or whatever, with other contracts that we have to pay. So I think the timing is all wrong. It's extremely bad for the schools because with March ending and April starting and not receiving the fees on time, it puts us in jeopardy. And since we have a cap on our reserves, it's only maybe a month or two, maybe we can without the new cash flow comes in. As Anirudh said, that also people don't realize that our expenses, 90% of our expenses are there unless we stop paying our staff and stop paying our electricity bills, because it doesn't matter if the schools are running in the schools are running online and the expenses more or less remain as it is. except maybe a very few exceptions. So I think parents need to understand that, and I think they do. Many of them do. And we always have some rumors going around relating, with the fake news culture that we have in India, where any WhatsApp is prime news now. So that's obviously beside one of the, but I think overall parents are supporting the schools, and I'm sure that maybe in a month the situation will become better. Our government is working very hard to improve the situation, and I think the lockdown will definitely help all of us to get back on our feet very soon.
Perfect. I think you have given some optimism in this situation, although the challenges are huge and massive, and especially for those schools who have less results. And I think the point by Ashish ji is very important, that the government should have allow the schools for increasing the results to face any situations again like this again in the near future. So after having these two rounds, I think I want to have a brief round on what are the regulatory changes expected from NCRT, CBSE, MHRD, or any other organizations. Like in these situations, what we expect from them, how to respond. And also the most important, the state governments to always straight away announce that uh, fees does not have to be paid, and various other restrictions which happens even from DMs and collectors and all those people. So I think like the schools have lot of regulatory issues. So in this situation, what are the regulatory expectations we have? So Anirudh ji, if you can start with that.
Yeah, Rajeev, that is correct. I mean, suddenly we've been, changed into a lot of, everyday regulations and everyday instructions. It's right for the government to think of the people, and, while we are talking about education, while we are talking about finances, I think the first focus and is to how to save lives of the people and how to protect ourselves, So it's right for the government and all the organizations to think of the people, especially about the needy and the downtrodden strata. Since there are no businesses happening, the traders, the shopkeepers. I mean, it's tough time for everybody. So it's right for the government to ask the schools to delay the payments or to not to levy any fine or something like that. However, the policy should not be lopsided. Already the managements and the principals and the teachers, they are under a lot of pressure with this, all of a sudden shift from, traditional working to the working from the home to providing, online and virtual resources. So already, I mean, people are under a lot of pressure, and over and above, when the organizations become stringent, so it's all the more painful. So I think there has to be a kind of a balance in the approach. None of the conscious school is forcing the parents to pay the fee right now, but I mean the government also needs to understand that from where all these finances will come from. So there has to be a kind of a level playing field, and some of the schools, I was just reading the questions from some of the schools. I mean, they are in the remote areas, there are hardly any resources. They don't have even smart boards, computers, or internet facility. So, I mean, the entire private education sector is so diverse. I mean, it's like, one size does not fit all. I mean, there are schools, which are being run by the big corporates, schools run by the multinational companies. And there are schools, which are being local schools, regional schools run by the entrepreneurs, the educationists. So, I mean, I think painting everybody with the same brush, I think, is not right. So, while everybody is concerned about the health and well-being of each other, we are concerned about health and well-being about our staff. The security staff is on round-the-clock duty. So, we are getting the regular health checkup done, because they are the most, people who are vulnerable to such kind of a thing. So a lot of effort is going on at the moment. So in these times, I think the government, instead of, kind of, passing on some draconian kind of, instructions, there has to be a level playing field. I mean, we are also concerned about the welfare of the people. As I said, that we are already providing free food and free essentials to more than almost 3,000 families. So as a part of our social responsibility also, we have a task at hand, and we are trying to live up to the expectations of the people. But I think, every state government, every district magistrate, like from state to state, the instructions are different. And already there has been a capping on the fee hike. Fine. So in these times, I think, the government should have a very, very balanced approach. We are concerned about the parents. We are concerned about the teachers. We understand that businesses are not happening. We understand that, some of the companies, they have laid off the, lot of their employees. So this is a tough, challenging times, nobody has anticipated. So I will like, let's have a mutual trust, all the parents, teachers, staff, managements, we need to understand each other's position, we need to have a trust on each other, and, we have to all work in tandem, and we have to collectively, fight. It's like a war. We have to collectively fight this war, and, we have to see that how best we can, emerge out of this situation, and which is a win-win situation for everybody. Where the schools which do not have enough financial resources, they don't go into any crisis. The students, their learning doesn't stop. The parents are not under any kind of a pressure. So the managements are, able to, take care of all the aspects, from the academics to administrative to financials to meeting the government regulations. So I think, it's kind of, suddenly there is a huge, influx of regulatory, instructions which we are receiving day in and day out. So we are trying to, see what best can be done in the present situation.
Excellent inputs. I think taking cue from what Ashish had said, Ashish Gulati had said that there is a trust deficit between schools and the parents. There is also perhaps a trust deficit between the schools and the regulator itself. So, Rajeev, Bakshi ji, your views on the regulatory expectations in these situations?
Well, I think I would very much agree with what Anirudh has said. And I think in the past 4, 5 years, 6 years, maybe a little more, 7, 8 years, I've been seeing a trend. I always felt as the manager of the institution that we are a partner with the government in terms of fulfilling a requirement, what the government is supposed to be doing. So basically the government and private institutions are no different. And but what I personally feel these days is, in the past almost, as I said, about 6, 7 years, 8 years now, that there is a trust deficit which is there. And private institutions are looked down upon as some kind of a money-making centers or whatever. And we are thought of as fleecing parents out of money. Now, the issue is that there is a regulation in terms of our providing for cameras. If you come to our principal's office, again, I would restate the statement that it's a very modest school. Now, if you come in some kind of a security room, she has about 3 television sets which are there in her room. And a lot of times when I see her once in a month or maybe twice in a month or something, I tell her, I said, do you work here or do you watch the television and seeing all the cameras as to where the children are going? Now, so you have got all these regulations which you expect from the schools to follow. But now if to follow those regulations, which unfortunately the government schools are not doing it at all. Now you expect us to do that, then how do we do that? And then you say you don't charge fee, you do this, then you have RTE children there. We have 140 children. Besides that 400 children that we teach, there are 140 RTE children a small school like ours have. So now you can understand that our plight is that for our day-to-day running expenses also, that but I don't know from where do you get the money. Government might think that this is a huge institution and there's a lot of money and they're making money out of it. But the fact remains is, where do we have the money? And in case if this fee doesn't come, and I think the government has to take a very positive approach to this whole fee business and not demonize the institutions, because we are partners with the government. Because if the government schools were running, if you go to the West, you have how many private institutions? They're not too many, because the government institutions are working much better than the private institutions are. And I have said it in a lot of meetings that I've held in Lucknow, and I said, साहब आप हम लोगों को जो blame करते हैं, हम लोगों की existence ही आप लोगों के मारे है कि अगर आप लोगों के institutions अगर ठीक चल रहे होते हैं, where you're paying thousands and thousands of crores of rupees of salaries every month, and in UP there is a expense of 2,500 rupees on each student studying in a government school.
Per month?
It's expense per month, 2,500 rupees on each student studying in a government school. Now, the fact remains is that we don't charge 2,500 rupees from our children. Now, by investing that kind of money, there is no return. But we as institutions are basically providing you quality education, of course, as per whatever your guidelines are. We don't have our personal guidelines anymore. That the book should be whatever, whether they are productive or not, whether they are futuristic or not. Those books are implemented on us. There are raids which are conducted on the institutions, whether we are following those books or not. Those books don't come on time. They have got bad printing quality. They have got bad, paper quality. The content is very poor. So now, I personally feel is that is putting a lot of pressure on these private institutions to operate and to operate productively. And I feel education is an art. It's an art. It's an art form. And I think with all those restrictions, if you tell a musician or if you tell a painter, yeah, hello, you've got to sing like that. This is the only song which I want to hear. Or you can't, invent anything new. Or if you tell an artist, go, hello, this is the stroke you're going to, this is how you're going to use your brush to paint a painting. They can't function. So what is happening is there's a lot of claustrophobia which is being created. And the institutions at the end of it feel, as the manager of the institution, I feel very dejected at one point in time. Is, hello, what is this? Why should the government be basically interfering in day-to-day functioning? And I understand, being from a political background, I do understand that there are certain commitments which the government has. But then your government cannot push private organizations to a point of extinction. We could possibly go a distance with you, but we can't travel all the way because we have our own limitations. We have our limitations. There's parents last year when all this fee regulation act which was coming in Uttar Pradesh, but there were lakhs of rupees of defaulters. Out of 1,700 children that we have in school, we had only 500 parents those who had paid the fee. And how do you realize that fee from those 1,200 children? And what all these regulations eventually are doing is that they are further building that mistrust between the institution, institution and the parents, and where their children are studying. And I think this whole concept of this respect for teacher and the principal and the parent and all that is getting diluted. And with all this, and I think I squarely blame the government for it, because you have to trust. You should see the circulars that come to us. आपको आदेशित किया जाता है. आपको इसको ना करने पे दंडनीय कार्रवाई करी जाएगी. We are not criminals. We are holding your hand. You're not holding our hand. We are holding your hand to do your job. So I think the government has to reinvent itself, and they have to accept us as their partners. Because if they don't accept and they have this kind of a negative approach towards institutions making money, and in case if they are making money, what's wrong with it? It's an enterprise. You spend crores and crores and crores of rupees. You pay what you call commercial taxes. You pay commercial electricity bill. You pay commercial water taxes. You are under scrutiny for everything. So you want all those restrictions to come on us without providing us any facilities. And what is that thing that is coming from the government to us? That we don't have even a proper training program which comes from the government, and I think which the government must do. They don't have it for their own institutions. What are they going to provide us? So I think this whole mindset has to change, and I don't know how it can be changed politically, because I don't see that happening in the near future. And I think it's only that we have to fight for everything. We have an association of independent schools here in Uttar Pradesh, where for everything, we have a young chairman of the association who's fighting day in and day out for going to ministers, going to education department, doing this, that. And I don't know, but it's a never-ending situation. So I think that trust deficit, which Anirudh said, I think that is very important. And I think that trust deficit is not only from the government, but it has developed almost 100% from the parents as well. And how this can be rectified. And I think we need to get out of this socialistic mindset that everything has to be done for free of cost, everything has to be for free. Well, I've said it on many platforms, and I said, listen, if you want free, you have got to go to the government school. You like it or you don't like it, but that's what my statement is. Because for everything infrastructure, we have got crores worth of loans on us. There's infrastructural development going on. We can't do anything. But this is, for us, it's a continuous COVID situation. This COVID situation is not only restricted to this past 2 months or the coming one more month. It is there, never ending ever since the school was established. They don't want to pay. They say, well, साहब वो पैसा नहीं है, साहब ये है, सरकार ने ये कहा है, माफ कर दिया है, आरटी में बच्चों के एडमिशन कराना चाहते हैं, हम मीरा आश्रम में एडमिशन कराना चाहते हैं. So I think the government needs to address, and I'm really happy that the Education Minister of Delhi and even the Education Minister here at Uttar Pradesh has also said that it is not non-payment of fee, it is only deferment of fee. So you have to pay for those 12 months. We have to pay for the 12 months. So I think that's a good call, and I think I was really scared if you ask me that if they defer those payments, I don't want to deduct my staff salaries. But I think that is criminal. It's a criminal because teachers are your backbones. They are working hard day in and out. Even today, I keep getting messages for your Zoom classes that are happening. And despite all odds in the past, odds in terms of the past 1.5, 2 months now, they're not being paid. So I think, as Anirudh said very well, I think we need to build this positive attitude towards the private institutions, because if you don't do that, we are always at loggerheads with each other. And I think the creativity which has to be there is no more there. You tell CBSE institution, we have that Wilbur school at Sitarganj, which is affiliated to CBSE. The minister is, what do you call, checking on the buses. He's getting into the buses, the education department, the children are not carrying private books, by private publishers. What is that? And there are no books in the market. That's the funniest part of it. So I find this whole situation very demeaning and something which I think is destroying the education system. भाई ये तो वही हो गया ना कि आप कोलगेट कंपनी जो बनाने वाली है उससे आप कहें कि साहब कोलगेट कंपनी जो आप कोलगेट का टूथपेस्ट बनाते हैं इसके अंदर सफेद रंग नहीं होना चाहिए, इसका रंग हरा होना चाहिए. But that they have a certain formula of manufacturing that. So the government can't chip in. Government can't. It is not that Socialist Republic of India, and I think we have got to come out of it. And I think we have got to train people. And I tell some of the parents, because we are local out here, and then a lot of parents are in my personal contact. And I tell them, I said, listen, isn't your phone disconnected if you don't pay your mobile bill? Isn't your electricity disconnected if you don't pay electricity bill? Isn't your water disconnected if you don't pay it? If you don't fill fuel in your scooter or motorcycle or car, doesn't it stop? I said, that is how this whole uh, business of paying your fee has to be taken. It has to be taken positively. And I think the people of this country must learn to pay for what they get, because there's nothing, there are no freebies which are available, mind you. And I think we have got in the past, whatever, ever since independence, we have got in this whole mindset that everything should come for free, government should pay for this, government should pay for that, or whatever. Government could come for assistance, but I think, and especially considering that we are private institutions, we generate our own funds, we take loans, there are pledges, you name it, it works. So I think I've taken too long, and I guess Siddharth is waiting, and Ashish is also waiting. So I think that trust deficit, as to begin with what Anirudh started off with, is I think that is what needs to be sorted out. And I think once that is sorted out, I think this problem could possibly be reduced to almost about, I feel, about 60%, if I'm not wrong.
They're absolutely fine with waiting, sir. You're making such valid points. So
No. I think I haven't had an opportunity to speak to anyone of the past almost now. I've been home since the last 17th. I've not gone out. It's just that I've gone today out for a blood donation, and that's about it. So I guess it's that verbal diarrhea, I think, which is working. Thank you very much, and I think I really appreciate your patience.
But Rajeev, I think the points you have made are very, very valid and very important. And not only for UP, but I think it's for all over India. So it's thanks for saying it. And I think that we at Elets and Digital Learning Magazine and our portals, we would love to write about these issues, because the issues you are talking about, I also strongly feel about it very much, that the private schools are the backbone of the school education system in this country. If these schools were not there, think about the whole, our children, where would they study, right? So private schools are doing us a favor, they are not looting us. So I think that there has to be a lot of messaging around this issue, which has to happen, which I think the stakeholders are not yet aware of. So
I'll just give you a very good instance. I'm sorry for interjecting again. Yeah. A very good story I have. I was working in some school a huge school in Dehradun some years back, and I was working as a teacher there. And I recall of that time that the parents used to rush to pay their fee. I'm talking about a huge school, big budgets, huge infrastructure, very reputed all over the country. And so parents used to rush to pay their fee. Now, I was talking to some masters of mine, those who were my friends then, and I'm still in touch with them. And they were saying that Rajeev would be surprised. The attitudes towards even such huge schools have changed so much that we never had to send a reminder for fee deposit. But this is becoming a psyche. I think that's what we have to understand. This is becoming a psyche, and which is not only with a modern school like ours, but maybe Siddharth school, which has been there for ages, and Anirudh schools and Ashish schools and other schools in the country. So it's getting into our psyche. So with a school as big as that, they're sending reminders for fee deposit. So I said, what is the reason? He said, सरकार ने सब लोगों को free education देने की बात की है, तो जो 10 लाख रुपए साल की फीस भी देता है, वो भी समझता है कि मेरी भी education free हो जाएगी. और butter chicken खाता है lunch के अंदर, and anda paratha and all that he eats for the breakfast, and four-course lunch, and they also expect that I think the education is going to be free for them. So I said, yeah, listen, this is really getting out of bounds. So we can't complain much. I think we are somewhere at the lower end of the whole system. And so it was happening with you guys. So I think there's nothing much we can do. So thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you. Ashish, please, your views.
Rajeev, Mr. Bakshi has already elaborated upon. I think what he's voicing is the pain points that the education as a system faces. Um, Now, since the issue in discussion is about what do we expect from the regulator, um, there's no one regulator. There is a multiplicity of regulations. There is no one regulatory framework. There is a multiplicity there. So. And I'm becoming very aware of the time and the fact that some of our participants had also had to leave. So keeping it brief, you know, I think if the regulator was a person, then I would just say that please be compassionate. Please be if you can be empathetic, we'll acknowledge your generosity, but at least come out with antipathy. We'll manage the rest. Leave it to us. And the other point that emerges is this is the regulation. I mean, again, I'm not. You know, I appreciate what the government's point of view is, and the fact that the government officials and all the stakeholders in the government have a lot to balance in terms of. And in private, whenever I've had the opportunity to speak to them, senior bureaucrats, senior politicians, they agree to the fact that the regulatory framework ought to be compassionate and empathetic. So there's no. That's why I say there's no one regulator. The regulator is not a person. But if it was a person, then I would request for his compassion and empathy. I would my sincere desire would be to somehow bridge the trust deficit. This trust deficit, now in our 40 years of journey, we've seen that the trust deficit has increased in the last 10 years. It probably started 15-20 years back. Prior to that, there was very little trust deficit. In fact, there was a lot of trust. Maybe it's got to do with the exposure that the present day parent has. It's got to do with his expectations. There can be we can probably try and understand it till the cows come home. But I would wish that this trust deficit begins to reduce. Now, I'm also very aware of the time, and since so I'll just take the liberty of jumping the gun and take permission from Siddharth to express very briefly my concerns about building a robust system once the lockdown is over. Dr. Ravi, would you want me to address this right away, or do you want to take it as a round?
We can.
Because I'm aware of it. I'm just becoming very aware of the time. So.
Okay, yeah. We can do that later, but
Sure.
let's look at Siddharth's
point of view is important.
So I think just adding to what Rajeev said earlier, what people don't realize is that India, being the youngest country, we need more schools, better institutes to provide the youth of this country with good education opportunities. Because if we don't educate our youth as of today, we are in big trouble as a country. So I think the government needs to address that fact and need to motivate more entrepreneurs to get into education. And that will only happen when they support the current players in the market. So I think that is where I think everyone here realizes that over the last few years, the trust deficit has increased. And that is because of the various circulars, the whole attitude towards private education. And that's troubling, and that's very bad for the country, because very frankly, the government cannot fulfill the demand that the country has where education is concerned, the kind of infrastructure, the kind of investment that is required. And also the entry cost to starting a school or a university, it's very high. People don't realize how expensive it is to create an institution, and the cost that goes into creating a good school. So it's very, very important that we recognize that fact, and the government also at some point should recognize that and help us, because they don't realize that we have a cap on our fees, we have thousand regulations to go through. At the same time, we pay GST, we pay a lot of other taxes, and we don't get the input benefit. So in a way, the schools are struggling, I think, everywhere except maybe the few residential schools which are very, very old and have a big surplus. Most of the private schools depend on their regular turnovers to manage day-to-day activities. And I hope that parents and the larger community realizes that. It's a very, very important point what Rajeev ji spoke about earlier.
Ravi, can I chip in here for a minute?
Yes, Anirudh ji.
So
Please.
what Rajeev said and what Siddharth said, I think, though our, the topic of discussion was that, like how to set up a robust systems in place to, reach out to every child, every household in this hour of crisis. But, since we switched over to, another tangent, and which is a very valid one. So I think what Siddharth said, the government's approach has to be enabling. Fine. We have to drop the strategies that what our population is going to be in next 10 years, and what numbers of schools are required. And if the strategies are enabling, are encouraging, I think the more the number of schools coming up, the fee structure will automatically come down, because it's all a matter of demand and supply.
Exactly.
So we need to understand that we need to support the systems, not all the time, put them in the dock. So the more good schools will come up, and alongside, we are also supporting the government system also. We want the government schools to improve. I mean, we trying to provide whatever best support and help. We are training government school teachers. We are providing them, asking them come to our schools, And if I talk about our case, I mean, our schools, they have been in operation since 1946. I mean, people have put in their whole lifetime, their blood, their sweat into raising the institutions. So it's not appropriate for anybody, to label them that, okay, this is just about money. It's not about money. It's about passion. It's about education. It's about fulfilling the need of the society. I mean, it's providing, quality education, taking the students to the best of universities around the world. Fine. Making India compete with the global industry. Fine. So I think the role of the private education sector in India's, education system should not be overlooked or diluted, and they should not be looked down. And, rather, I mean, as I said earlier, let's all trust each other. I like all the school managements also to be very reasonable, they should be charging as per their facilities and fee structures. And most of them are doing it. And, as I said, there's a lot of diversification in the sense that, we have very, very small budget schools. As Mr. Rajeev said that, the government schools are not free either. It's the taxpayers' money, if you see the per cost per month student, being spent in the government schools, it is much, much more higher than what is being charged by the private schools. Fine. So we need to have a very, very balanced approach. We need to, take all the stakeholders together. We need to look into the concerns of the parents. We need to look into the fact that they are not fees. But on the other side, the people who have spent their entire lifetime, they spend a whole lot of effort, time and money in raising these institutions, which are doing a human's job, which are doing commendable work. So I think it will not be fair for anybody to, just, let them down. So everybody has a right to put across their point of view. So we appreciate and understand everybody's concern. So coming back to, the present situation, we are concerned about our teachers, our security staff, our students. We are looking into the government directions also. So we are trying to combat the situation, and we are trying to reach out to, people beyond the, the school also, as our, responsibility towards the society. So I think, let's remain positive. Let's support each other. I will advise the teacher to read a lot of books, to upgrade their knowledge and skills. I'll advise the principals, those who have been, those who have inhibition in using the technology, that this is the right time for you to dive deep into technology, choose the right technology for your schools. And, few people, like few of the schools were asking that they don't have enough resources, they do not have the proper equipment to reach out to the students. So for them, I'll tell you that CBSE has a lot of resources. CBSE has provided a lot of, like open educational resources, Diksha content. Even the Ministry of HRD is providing a lot of free resources. And it is not difficult. I think everybody has a smartphone these days. The schools, can reach out to the parents even through WhatsApp also. So I think for every kind of school, notwithstanding your, whatever IT paraphernalia you have in place, I think every school can utilize a lot of open educational resources, and they can reach out to the parent, through simpler platforms like, telecalling, emailing, and most of the schools are trying to do it. So let's not get into any kind of blaming each other. Let's remain positive. Let's encourage each other. These are tough times. These are unprecedented times. Nobody had ever anticipated that, this thing will happen. So let's there be a lot of positivity. Let there be a mutual trust. Let's all collectively think, strategize, and re-strategize that, what best can be done in this kind of a situation. So I think, the discussions like this, where we can open up, we can engage with the people across the country. I think they're one of the best platforms, to have, exchange of thoughts, exchange of information. And my best wishes to all the teachers, all the principals, all the parents, I wish them happy learning. And I thank, ELETS and Ravi, you in person, that, for organizing and creating this session. And you've been doing a fantastic work for last so many years. So thank you very much. And I wish everybody stay happy, stay safe. And from my side, from my organization side, I salute all the teachers, and I look forward to, a lot of such engagement and, exchange of thoughts and ideas, because this is the only way forward. We have to, have a lot of open discussions. We have to be open to criticism. We have to open to each other's point of view. This is only the way, we can, collectively move forward. So thank you very much, and I really look forward.
Anirudh, thanks for your inputs. We are joined by Sapna Sukul here, who has played an important role in building this panel. So we could have Sapna speak about the current situation as an educationist. Yeah, Sapna ji, please.
I've been listening to all of you, and on personal note, I have worked with everyone. And the last day I was with DCM group with Anirudh on Saturday when I came down. And not only they are good educationists, they are philanthropists by nature. So that's why we thought, why not get such eminent educationists plus philanthropists, the kind of work which they're doing in their schools. What they spoke is just very little about their work. They are working, like doing, they are making a difference in the society, already doing a lot of work, starting with Anirudh and Rajeev, Siddharth, Ashish. If you go and see like what they are doing in today's COVID-19 situation, they are reaching out to multiple people and helping the society too. And whatever they have said, I endorse. Like there's nothing left for us to say, but just support education system by the government for the people, and they are doing. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today for this session, and thank you, Ravi, for taking this, just thinking about this idea and just going ahead. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, Sapna.
Just a second, like Ashish, he had some point to make, so he can make the last point, and then we can end. Ashish, volume, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ravi. Since we are looking at stepping out of the lockdown and looking forward to normalcy restoring in schools, we and as your topic says, the robustness about the system that we need to build into the system. So very briefly, being aware of the time, you see, a robust system is something where not only is there a framework in which people converge towards an objective, but it's also something which sustains itself even when the variables have been altered. And this kind of a situation of a lockdown is a huge variable. It's the first of its kind, and it's something that has got us unawares. Now, the first thing that we would need to ensure, in the first place, I would like to believe and also complement the entire education system of India, wherein the system has not collapsed. So there is a certain robustness that I see in the system. The system has overnight, maybe in an ad hoc manner, moved to an online platform in whichever, by whatever means possible. So there is a robustness that I see in the system. There is a definite intent and will that I see amongst people. Taking the analogy of an electronic, of electronics, a robust system would not only have the right components, it would also have the right connections, the right collaboration. So I think we have a robust education system in the country, which we, despite our all our pain points, despite all our trust deficit, despite our cynical criticism, we ought to be proud of. I think what we need to do is we just need to upgrade the education system to meet these kind of situations, and so the next time something like that happens, we are not unawares. So I think there, what should happen is that what this lockdown and this situation has taught us is the significance of technology and the ability to use it whenever required in the right way. In terms of health, I think what it has taught us is the significance of taking care of one's health and the responsibility of being responsible for own health and also for the health of others, which is something which I think I would want to build into the system, that the students and the parents and the schools as a community sensitize and enable the stakeholders to be responsible for their own health and be responsible for the health of others, which in the recent times before the lockdown manifested itself in schools being very aware and trying to create this awareness among students that don't come to school for your own sake and for the sake of not giving the infection, whatever the infection may be. So it created it raised the level of awareness. Technology as a enabler and the ability to use it when required, to fall back on it, I don't think it needs an elaboration. I think what I see happening in terms of increasing the robustness of our education system is upgrading ourselves so that the next time we have all the resources in place, and if a situation like this occurs, the system that is the fallback, the plan B takes over. Today it has taken over in an ad hoc manner. The next time it ought to take itself over. The only other point that I would take the liberty of enumerating here is that once the students are back, it will be very important to bring all the students on the same page, because we don't have a feedback of the online learning. See, online learning is not new. There are whole universities which run online, and they have through various iterations and investments been on the learning curve to build in a feedback of the learning, which is something which we don't have a visibility of as of now, but we can possibly invest to build it. Yeah. On that note, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ashish. And I will give the request Siddharth to give you closing remarks, and then we end this panel. Siddharth.
I think what we are witnessing right now is something unprecedented. And I think it's ultimately, very frankly, as teachers, as educators, we have, it's like acquiring a new degree, very frankly, in online. Like 1 week course that we all have taken. And very frankly, I had never explored so many online tools that we are doing right now. And,
Rajeev, suddenly, what I've realized that we are attending more meetings than ever before. I mean, there are almost, 7, 8 meetings on, webinars, Zoom, Skype. So I have a full list of, meetings, and, we are ending up spending more time in our conference room and boardrooms than we were doing previously. So I think the silver lining is that, lot many of us, in our positions, I was not using these platforms myself. My office staff was doing it for me. So I have now taken control of my social media and all these, online meeting platforms myself. And I'm sure, like me, everybody else is doing it. So
I think
this has given us, a time, few moments where, like, whatever work we were not able to look into it, we were overlooking, we are able to devote time. But one thing is clear that, I mean, these times, in the aftermath of these times, the schools will not be functioning the way they were working before. I mean, there'll be, a lot of changes happening in the mindset of the teachers, the students, the parents have become more tech savvy. Fine. And I see a lot of parents, post COVID-19 times engaging with the teachers online. So suddenly things are going to, take a, a whole lot of shift and, change from, at this point of time. And I hope that, it is for the better for all the stakeholders. Parents have become tech savvy, students have started the habit of self-learning, teachers, started, having more confidence on themselves. They started creating wonderful resources, and my hats off to all the teachers. The principals, they are engaging with the teachers lot more than what they were doing before. So there are a lot of, good things happening, and a lot of, positive, things coming out of this present situation. And I hope, everything settles down. We are able to, tide over this COVID-19. And I sincerely hope that, this situation, turns out to be an enabling situation, a positive situation, a learning situation, a situation which brings all of us closer to each other. And let's be positive, let's have patience, let's keep believing in each other. And I think, there are a lot of, wonderful things happening, even in this hour of crisis. So I again, will like to thank all the educators, all the teachers. Some of them are exchanging mails and WhatsApps, even during late hours in the night. Fine. So I thank the families of the teachers also, which are supporting the teachers and, providing them the space and the comfort to, work from home. And I thank all the participants also, and I look forward, to good times, to come back soon.
I think Anirudh said something very correctly, that I think one is that the crisis puts everyone together. That's something which is very important, and I guess it happens always. And the second part of it, and I think Sapna is a witness to it, that I think I have not spoken to the teaching staff or the principals in the past 10 years so much, as much I have done it in the past 15, 20 days or 25 days, that I am on a conference with them twice a day. And I think one of them, they asked me, sir, चलिए कम से कम अच्छा तो है कि आपसे बात हो जाती है, नहीं तो आपसे तो बात ही नहीं सर हो पाती थी. So I think it's a crisis situations always put things together, and I second Anirudh's statement that I think let's be positive, and I think everything is going to be positive in the coming days to come, and I think we should all float together and we'll float well.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So Rajeev, I win the debate here.
Yeah, I know. I can see you there. I can see you there.
Siddharth, आपका statement complete नहीं हो पाया. Please.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with what everyone said. I think this is a time where I think our learning has propelled through different platforms. And as Anirudh said, that I would like all the educators who are watching this, that all these platforms are available for free. So there is absolutely no charge. So you can, it's very basic. It's easier for all the parents to navigate through. So please explore all these platforms online, and I'm sure that the school won't suffer. The only problem what we are facing, because we have students from all over India, so connectivity is not the same across different cities. So that's maybe a problem. But otherwise, even through Google Classrooms, at least the students can go and download assignments and notes and everything. CBSE website has amazing material. They have done a great job uploading all the videos and everything. Khan Academy is a good source. So there are a lot of sources available online, and I'm sure that as educationists and all the students, teachers, everything, we are going to be positive through this crisis, and we are going to come out stronger as a school or as a institution than what we were. And I'm sure that's true for everyone else.
Fantastic. So I think we should end here. We are already at 8 o'clock here. And before we end, I want to request each of the panelists here to write your views on the what we discussed right now, and write an article if possible for our digital learning portal, which has millions of readers all over the globe. So, and for all the audience, this very important discussion is available on the digital learning Facebook page. You are already seeing it live. It will also get uploaded on the Elets TV YouTube channel. So you can like it and share with all your education fraternity, because I think the very enriching discussions have happened here, and a lot of learnings for each of us from each other, I suppose. So with this, I am thanking all the panelists again, all the audience for joining us. Very interesting panel.
Thank you, Ravi. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sapna. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.